So before I dive into the team app deals and show you guys how you can get access up to $50,000 or more in government grants, I want to show you the reality of buying a property today in these different states. In Sydney, if you were to buy a $1.1 million property, you would need a 10% deposit. A 10% deposit of 1.1 million is 110,000. That's how much you need to save. Then you got stamp duty. People say, what's stamp duty? Stamp duty is basically tax. So that's another $46,089 that you need to save on top of the 110,000. Right? Then you got LMI. So people say, what's LMI? LMI is lending mortgage insurance. So if your deposit that you're putting down to the bank, so for instance, is 110,000, if your deposit is lower than 20% of the value of the property, the bank is going to charge you insurance on the money they're lending you, just in case you don't pay the money back. For example, it's like car insurance, or house insurance, right? The bank is going to charge you LMI, which is lending mortgage insurance, because your deposit is under 20%. So that's another 43,000 on top of everything else, and then you got other costs like solicitors costs, which is 3,000. So the total deposit that you need to buy a $1.1 million property in Sydney is $202,089. $202,089. Sydney, anyone from Sydney? When you see $202,089 as a deposit that you need to save, how does it make you feel in the chat? I'm curious. Melbourne, if you were to buy a $997,000 property, you need a 10% deposit, which is $99,700. Then you got stamp duty, which is tax. That's another $54,835. Then you got LMI. Again, if your deposit that you're putting down to the bank is less than 20% of the value of the property, the bank is going to charge you insurance on the money they're lending you. That's another $24,720. And then you got other costs, which is solicitors costs, which is $2,554. So for those of you from Melbourne, anyone from Melbourne? The total deposit that you need to buy a $997,000 property is $181,809. Curious. For those of you from Melbourne, when you see that as a deposit, how does that make you feel? Brisbane, Sydney, how do you guys feel about that? Or is that okay? Melbourne, how does it make you feel? Brisbane, let's have a look at Brisbane. If you were to buy a $783,000 property, 10% deposit, which is $78,300, then you got stamp duty, which is $21,085, and your LMI, which is $19,226, and then you got other solicitors costs, which is $2,651. So the total deposit that you need to buy a property in Brisbane for $783,000 is $121,262. $121,262. So Brisbane, anyone from Brisbane? When you see that as a deposit that you need to come up with, how does that make you feel about buying property? And if you're like, Felise, man, that's a lot of money. The reality is, think about the property boom. As property prices continue to go up, if you don't do something today, you don't do something now, right? Property prices go up. That means your deposit that you put down goes up also. Yeah, so you guys connecting the dots? And that's why we say now is the right time to buy. Yeah? Why using 10%, not 20%? If you use 20% of this, that's still 20% of that. You're still looking at what? 180, so 80,000. That's 160,000. Yeah, 160,000. You could put a 20% deposit down, but that's $160,000 deposit that you need to put down. Plus stamp duty. You still need to pay stamp duty. You don't have to pay LMI. So you're looking over 200,000. Yeah. And look, most people in this position, it's like buying a home is impossible, right? So what we're here to share with you guys is how we've been able to help hundreds of families transition and get their foot in the door, right? Or it may be to be able to buy their first property. Now, the way that we do this is we call this the other people's money strategy, OPM, other people's money. How do you utilize as much of other people's money in buying your first or next property? Let's have a look at it. Number one, government incentives. Yeah. So I'm going to dive into that. Number two, family pledge. All right. So for example, me, my parents own property. I use that property to buy my next property. Why not? Yeah. Number 3, vendor finance. Okay. I'm going to share with you guys deals we call it creative deals that we've been able to negotiate with developers to be able to incentivize you guys to be able to get your foot in the door. All right. Number 4, discounted properties, where you buy properties under market value. All right, that's discounted properties. And number 5, incentives, where you could buy properties and get incentives back. Right, and I'm gonna share with you guys some of the rebates, some really cool deals that are available right now. And look, these government grants, you do need to be eligible for it, right? So if you are eligible, you can get access to it, right? But I'm mindful that everyone's coming from a different starting point. You guys may have different questions, and again, that's why I mentioned to you guys earlier. At the end of the call, at the end of the webinar, you'll be able to book in a call with me, where we can figure out what you're eligible for and what you can get access to. But in the meantime, as an overview, this is an example. So in New South Wales, if you're a first home owner, you can get access up to $10,000. All right, $10,000 on your first property. Number 2, if you buy the right type of property, you can avoid paying stamp duty. So you can avoid paying tax, potentially saving up to $31,000. So $31,000 plus $10,000, you're looking at saving about 40 grand. Yeah, $40,000. So $10,000 back from New South Wales. So every state is different. Let me be clear, every state is different. In Victoria, very similar to New South Wales. If you buy the right type of property, you can get access to $10,000. And if you, again, buy the right type of property, you can avoid paying stamp duty. Eligibility, Australian citizen, permanent resident, New Zealand citizen, or a special category visa. If you own a property prior to 2000, never lived in it, you may be eligible for this grant. Queensland, check this out, guys. If you're in Queensland, you're a first home buyer, it's 30 grand. You can get back up to $30,000 on your first property. And you can avoid paying stamp duty, avoid paying tax. Eligibility is Australian citizen, permanent resident, New Zealand citizen. So most people that are New Zealand citizens or on a special category visa may be eligible for this. If you owned a property prior to 2000, never lived in it, you may be eligible for this, guys. Right? And big news, this is big news, guys. All first home owners can now buy property with a 5% deposit. What does that mean? Remember I was sharing with you guys earlier, where if you put a deposit down on a property that's less than 20%, the bank is going to charge you LMI. With this grant here, if you are eligible, basically the government will cover your LMI. So you pay no LMI. So you buy a property with a 5% deposit and not have to pay LMI. And the cool thing about this is there's no income limit. So prior to these changes, I think these changes were in December or November. Prior to it, they had an income limit. So if you made an X amount of money, you wouldn't be eligible for it. Well, now they're just opening the gates. Also with that, they've increased the price cap. So you can buy property up to 1.5 million in Sydney. You can buy property up to 950 in Melbourne. You can buy property up to 1 million in Brisbane and be eligible for it. All right, so there is a price cap on it. And this starts now, so this is available right now. And as I shared with you guys earlier with the property boom, this is also what's driving the demand in the property market for properties, yeah? Because you're having these incentives now where first homeowners can now buy property with a 5% deposit. And so that's just creating more demand in the marketplace, right? There's also these other government incentives out there, Help to Buy, which means you're basically buying the property with the government. Yeah, regional first home buyer support scheme. So this is eligible if you're in regional areas. You may be able to buy property with a 5% deposit. If you buy with the government, it's a 2% deposit. First homeowners guarantee, we've discussed that. And then you got the family home guarantee. So these are for single parents, at least with one child dependent. If that's the case, you can buy property with a 2% deposit, right? This is available right now, fans. Yeah, this is what we talk about, other people's money. Now, let's dive into the deals. I want to show you guys how we create these deals and how we put them together to be able to help you get your foot in the door, right? So one of our students here from Melbourne, they purchased this property, 599,800 house and land. We negotiated for them just to put a 5% deposit down. We've got brokers finding out the best deal, and then it's come up with a deposit of 29,990. They were eligible for the $0 of stamp duty, so they didn't have to pay tax. They didn't have to pay LMI. Yeah. And then the total deposit was $32,990, and then they got $10,000 back. Yeah. For the first home owners grant. So the total deposit for them to be able to secure this property was $22,990. $22,990 compared to what I showed you guys before, guys. Was it 180? 180,000? Is this a good deal? You tell me. Brisbane, look at this, guys. One of our students here, the price of the property was $629,980, house and land. Again, we negotiated for them just to put a 5% deposit down. They paid 0 stamp duty, 0 LMI. The total deposit was $33,499. Got 15 grand back. So for those that didn't know, the first homeowners grant in Queensland used to be 15. It's now 30, but it's actually going to go back down this next financial year. I'm pretty sure on July, it's going to go back down to 15, right? So again, this is why we say now is the right time. Take advantage of what's available right now. So with these guys here, the total deposit for them was $18,499. So for those of you from Brisbane, when you see that $18,499 compared to what, 120,000, big difference, yeah? This is other people's money. Sydney, price of the property was $969,980. So after other people's money, the total deposit for them was $92,295 compared to what, 200,000. So it's about $100,000 difference, and they're getting their foot in the door. Yeah, this is the power of OPM. We also have the TMAP two-step, but the TMAP two-step looks like this: buy what you can afford now to get what you really want later. So my question to those of you on the call right now: what if you have to start here? What if because your current deposit, your current borrowing capacity, or your borrowing capacity? What if you have to start with a 2-bedroom apartment or a 3-bedroom apartment? What if you have to start here to finish here? Or what if you have to start with a townhouse to be able to finish here? Or even here? My question to those of you on the call: yes or no in the chat, fans? Yes or no? Would it make sense to start where you currently are right now so that you could buy the property that you want later? Yes or no in the chat? Does that make sense to you? Does the TMAP two-step make sense to you guys? Buy what you can afford now to be able to get what you really want later. Yes or no? One of the biggest questions I get all the time is, Felise, how do people buy $5 million properties? How do people buy $10 million properties? Because they used to own a $4 million property. Yeah? And so they owned a property, they sold it, and then they purchased the next one. Right? And just great examples. These are examples here. Terrence and Susan, they bought their first property. They're just starting off, guys. They weren't really sure if they can even do this. Terrence was like, you know what have we got to lose? We're renting anyways. They joined TMAP. They got access to our team. We created this deal for them, guys, where they only had to come up with a deposit of $23,499.50. They didn't have to pay stamp duty. They didn't have to pay LMI. So they had to come up with a deposit of $23,499.50. And that was it. And guess what, guys? Upon settlement, they got a $30,000 rebate. Right? So my question to those of you on the call: is this a good deal? Terrence and Susan put down a deposit of $23,499.50 to secure this unit here in Schofields. And then upon settlement, when they took this photo, they got $30,000 back from the developer. They got $30,000 tax-free back from the developer. My question to you is that a good deal? And some of you are like, Felise, how did they get that deal? Here at Tishman Property, we've gone out there, been around for 10 years, we've established relationships with developers all across the world, but we also negotiate better deals, better terms, and better conditions. And so in this deal here, they got 30 grand back. What do you think they did with the 30 grand? Terrence and Susan got $30,000 back on settlement. What do you think they've done with it? What do you think they've done with the 30 grand, fans? They put the second property. They bought 2 properties by 22. Yeah, 2 properties by 22. Yeah. Gerhard, another great example, fans, right? He bought what he could afford, and he started here. He started with the studio. He bought a studio, And after buying the studio, he lived in it for 6 months. The value of the property went from $319,999, the mortgage, to now valued at $550. So what do? We recapitalized on this asset. We took $120,000 out of the first property, $30,000 went to his lifestyle. I think he went on a holiday. 90 grand, used that as a deposit to buy his second property. He bought 2 properties by the age of 20. All right. And property number 3 was a 3-bedroom villa. All right. Again, buy what you can afford now to be able to get what you want later. Yeah, and so buying the first property for you may be a new build, it may be a studio, it may be a townhouse, it may be a property that's already established, right? But whatever that property is, guys, it's going to help you get the next property. Another great example, Daniel and Amy, they bought their first property, they lived in it for 1 year. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2 living and 1 garage. They lived in it for 1 year, then they sold it. They bought it for $633,990. They sold it for $820. The uplift from that property was $186,020. That's how much they made from that one property, guys. They bought it, they lived in it for 12 months, and they made $186,020. Why did they sell it? Because they built their dream home. This is a massive dream home for them, guys. 6 bedrooms, 4.5 living areas, 4.5 bathrooms, 4 living areas, over 400 square meters. All right. Low money down deal. I'm going to finish on this deal here, guys. We have different strategies, and we have these strategies in place to be able to help you get your foot in the door, but eventually help you get the dream property, but also help you play the wealth game, which is eventually replace your income. Yeah, so these are different strategies depending on your starting point. What if you could buy a property with a $5,000 deposit? So just to explain what a low money down deal is, low money down deal, these are deals that TMAP has negotiated with developers all across Australia, okay? But these properties, just so you understand, they're not built yet, right? So they're in the early stages of development. So what they do is they sell off these deals, and we've been able to negotiate deals for our students where you only put a small deposit down today and you lock in the price today, right? But they take up to 18 to 24 months to be built. All right. For example, this is the Pucky family, guys. And for them, they just wanted to get out of renting. They want to start owning property, right? And so this is what their deal looked like. Their deal was a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2 living area, 1 garage. And the contract price of the property was $649,980. That was the contract price. Yeah. And so they only put down $5 grand. They put $5 grand down to lock in the contract price of $649,980, which is a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 2 living area, 1 garage. All right. And so, pro tip, if you're in a contract of a property for longer than 12 months and the value of the property has gone up, you can use the uplift as a deposit on the property. All right. So let me explain that again. If you're in a contract of a property for longer than 12 months and the value of the property goes up, you can use the uplift as a deposit on the property. So for example, the Pucky family, as I mentioned to you guys earlier, these properties aren't built yet, so they take up to 18 to 24 months. So remember, they put $5 grand down, they locked in the price of $649,980. When we did a valuation after 12 months, the valuation came back at $900,000. So the property had gone up from $250,000 in $20, and all they put in was the initial $5,000 deposit. So guess what we did? We used the uplift as a deposit on the property. And the only funds that they had to put into this deal was the initial $5,000 deposit. So my question to those of you on the call today, if you put $5 grand in and you locked in a property at $649,980, and that property had gone up by $250,000, and you use the uplift as a deposit on the property, and you now are in control of a $900,000 asset, a property, is that a good deal for only $5 grand? Yeah. And so these are the deals, these are the creative deals that TMF has been able to negotiate with developers to be able to incentivize you guys to be able to play the wealth game.